All right, let's dive into one of the most creative and honestly kind of mind-bending areas of artificial intelligence, genetic algorithms. This is all about taking a page from nature's playbook, borrowing a 3.6 billion-year-old idea to solve some of our trickiest problems. So how does it work? Let's get into it. To get our heads around this, let's start with a weird question. Imagine you could ask Mother Nature herself to design a piece of high-tech equipment, say a satellite antenna. Forget all the straight lines and neat shapes you're used to. What would a truly evolved antenna look like?
Well, it would probably look a lot like this. Yeah, I know, it looks like a twisted paperclip, but this weird, lopsided shape is an incredibly high-performance antenna that was evolved by a computer at NASA. No human designed it, at least not directly. And that is the magic we're going to unpack. So, where does an idea this wild even come from? Well, it's inspired by the single most powerful problem-solving engine on the planet, Darwinian evolution.
It all boils down to Charles Darwin's big idea of natural selection. It's actually pretty simple. If an organism has traits that help it survive and thrive, it gets to live longer, make babies, and pass on those winning traits. It's survival of the fittest, playing out over millions of years.
And nature is just full of these incredible stories, right? Take the hobbit humans from the island of Flores in Indonesia. These ancient relatives of ours evolved to be only about a meter tall. So why would that happen? Well, on an isolated island, food is scarce. A smaller body needs fewer calories. It was a brilliant evolutionary solution to a tough problem.
Okay, so that's the biology. But how in the world do you get a computer to do that? How do we take this epic, sweeping idea of evolution and translate it into ones and zeros?
We're going to walk through it with a super simple problem. The mission for our algorithm is this: find the biggest number you can make with 6 bits. Now, you and I know the answer is all ones, 111111, which is 63 in decimal. But the algorithm has no idea. It's starting from scratch and has to evolve its way to the answer. First up, we need to learn a couple of terms that, you guessed it, are borrowed straight from biology. Any single possible solution to our problem, like one of those 6-digit strings, is called a chromosome. And if the whole string is a chromosome, then each individual part of it, in our case, a single 1 or a 0, is called a gene. Simple enough, right? It's just the basic building block. So you can see how this all maps out, right? It's a pretty neat one-to-one translation. In biology, an organism has chromosomes made of genes. In our algorithm, a solution has a string of code made of bits. This metaphor is the key to the whole thing. All right, let's pop the hood and see how this engine actually runs. It's not a straight line to the answer. It's a cycle, like a super fast version of life, death, and reproduction happening inside your computer.
The whole process is basically a 4-step loop that just runs over and over again. First, you figure out how good each solution is. That's evaluation. Then, you pick the best ones to be parents. That's selection. After that, you combine them to make children. That's crossover. And finally, you throw in a little bit of randomness, which is called mutation. Let's look at each one.
Okay, first things first, evaluation. Before we can do anything else, we have to have a way to score every possible solution, every chromosome. We call this its fitness score.
For the problem we're working on, this is super simple. The fitness score is just the decimal value of the binary number. So a string of all ones has the best possible score of 63. A string of all zeros gets a big fat 0. The higher the number, the fitter the solution. Easy.
Next up is selection. We've got to decide which of our solutions get to pass on their genes. A really common way to do this is called tournament selection. You just grab a few random individuals from the population, see who has the highest fitness score, and congratulations! The winner, in this case individual D, gets to be a parent. You do this again and again to create a pool of winners. And now we get to the really cool part, crossover. This is basically digital breeding. We take 2 of our winning parents, and we pick a random spot to slice them in half. Here, we're cutting right down the middle, after the 3rd gene. Then, you just swap the ends. The front half of parent 1 gets attached to the back half of parent 2, and vice versa. And just like that, you have 2 brand new children that are a mix of their successful parents' traits. And last but definitely not least, we have mutation. This part is so important. For every single gene in our new generation of solutions, there's a tiny, tiny chance it will just randomly flip. A 0 becomes a 1 or a 1 becomes a 0. This prevents the algorithm from getting stuck in a rut and is the source of all true creativity in the system. It lets totally new ideas emerge out of nowhere. So that's the cycle. Evaluate, select, crossover, mutate. Now, what happens when you just let this process run, not just for one generation, but for thousands?
Well, the computer repeats this loop at incredible speed, hundreds, thousands, even millions of times. With every single generation, the weaker solutions tend to die off, while the stronger ones combine their genes and produce even better offspring.
And the result is pretty dramatic. In generation 1, everything is random, so the average solution is pretty terrible. The error is high. But as you let it run, over hundreds of generations, you see the average error just plummet. The population as a whole is getting smarter and zeroing in on the best possible answer.
Okay, so why should you care about all this? Well, this is where it gets really powerful. Genetic algorithms are amazing because they come up with solutions humans would probably never think of. They can optimize ridiculously complex things, like finding the most efficient delivery routes for a fleet of trucks, or even fine-tuning the structure of other AI models. They've even been used in oil exploration to analyze seismic data and find hidden salt deposits.
And that brings us right back to where we started. By taking the core idea of evolution and applying it inside a computer, we can get from the finches on the Galapagos Islands all the way to that wonderfully bizarre and effective antenna designed for a NASA spacecraft. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Nature's been running the world's longest, most complex experiment for billions of years. What other huge, complicated problems could we finally crack if we just keep learning from it?